Hi there, it's Marlene Hielema from ImageMaven.com, and in this video I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Intelligent Auto, specifically the iHDR setting, which is Intelligent HDR, and HDR means High Dynamic Range. So I'm going to dive back into the menus of the Intelligent Auto and have a look at that stuff. Now, I have done a whole tutorial about HDR, but that is not in the Intelligent Auto version of HDR. But if you'd like to see that, have a look and you'll learn more about HDR. I'll also compare how to set each of them up so that you can make your choice. If this is your first time here, thanks for checking me out. I teach photography, photo editing, a little bit of lighting, and I'm a huge fan of Lumix cameras. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. So why do we need to shoot in high dynamic range at all? Well, in nature, there are huge, vast differences between dark and light areas in any given scene, especially in the outdoors. So if you're shooting on a day where the sun is shining and you have dark areas of, say, wooded areas or forests in one part of your image and the sky in another part of your image, the camera is going to have a hard time compressing all those various tonalities, the brightnesses, into one image. And that's where HDR comes in. So the camera will take usually a series of 3 photos, an underexposed, a normally exposed, and an overexposed image, and put them all together automatically in the camera using the HDR mode. Now in iHDR, Intelligent HDR, the camera also chooses when it needs to do that. You can choose it yourself in the regular HDR mode, which I mentioned that video I have, but sometimes you're not sure. So if you have it in Intelligent Auto IA mode, whether it's IA or IA+, you can set up iHDR. The camera will decide. Now that can be good or a bad thing, because if you're not expecting it and you're taking a photo and iHDR activates, it will take 3 photos in quick succession and you might not be expecting that. So you have to keep an eye on your viewfinder if you have iHDR turned on, because the camera will override you. It'll just decide on its own when it's going to take those photos. If you definitely want to take HDR photos, it's better to set it up right within the camera in another mode, and I suggest aperture priority mode so that your depth of field stays constant for each of those 3 photos that get taken. Here's a quick review on how to set up the normal HDR. I've got it in aperture priority mode. I go into my menus. It's on page 5 of 5 of the main photo menus. So HDR right now is off. What you need to do first is decide on the dynamic range you want. So you can pick plus or minus 1, 2, or 3, or auto. So let's put it on 1. You can choose also if you want auto align on or off. Go back into the main menu and go back in and turn HDR on. You can see that HDR is set up and we take our photos. 3 photos get automatically taken at 1 f-stop difference. And here's the blended version. Not very exciting, a picture of my backdrop. And you can see here though in the playback menu that HDR is on. All right, if that's all gibberishy sounding and stuff like that, watch my other video. I explain everything in great detail. But let's set it up in Intelligent Auto. Let's have a look at the menus and go from there. So right now I've got my camera in Intelligent Auto mode, and when I go into the menus, you can see that I have Intelligent Auto, and you can also set it up in Intelligent Auto Plus. So I'll use it in Intelligent Auto Plus, but it makes no difference. You can also see we have a menu here for handheld night shot, so Intelligent Handheld, and here's our Intelligent HDR. So right now it's off, and I'm going to take a photo. All right, so there's our photo. Let's turn it on. And let's take another photo, and you can see here that now in our LCD on the back of the camera, it says HDR. It didn't say that before when HDR was off because I didn't give it a choice. So let's take a photo. You can hear that it took 3 photos, and you can see here that it's processing them into one photo. Let's do another one and you watch the processing. See right here? It's processing those 3 photos together. It's combining them into one photo. Okay, so let's play those back. And when you play them back, you can see here that HDR was on in this one. And here's the first shot I took, and there's no HDR in this. Okay, so there we go, HDR on. Let's look at these photos together. HDR off, HDR on, and side by side. Here's another example, HDR off, HDR on, side by side, HDR off, HDR on. You get the picture. Now, one thing you notice, if you've watched my eye dynamic video and eye resolution video, these are the 2 symbols for eye dynamic and eye resolution, and in Intelligent Auto it automatically sets those up. So there is a little bit of eye dynamic built into Intelligent Auto. Now, I have a video on eye dynamic which you can watch. So when you take HDR photos, because it takes 3 photos in succession, and if you're hand holding, what happens is there's an auto align feature in the camera, and it will actually crop the edges of your frame a little bit. So keep that in mind. If you want to have less cropping, just shoot from a little bit farther away from your subject if HDR is popping up. So that auto align feature is something you have to keep in mind. And again, I suggest using a tripod. That will help with the alignment. And one other thing is, it's not recommended to take photos of moving subjects using the HDR or the Intelligent HDR feature because of the 3 photos, and your subject, you could get some ghosting in there. And I talk about that and demonstrate that in my other video that I made as well. So you're probably wondering, would I use iHDR? Well, I did some tests today, and I have to say, probably not. I found myself trying to look for a scene that might want HDR, and if I want HDR, I'd rather just set it up intentionally. I'd rather not have it happen accidentally. But hey, each their own. Some people like to shoot in Intelligent Auto mode or Intelligent Auto Plus mode, and if that's the case, then, you know, use HDR. Check it out and see if you like it for yourself. But for me, I think I'd rather do it intentionally. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.